started preaching in May 20th of 1984, going on my 40th year as a preacher. Preacher got the gift of gab, but speaking truth to facts, the facts of truth. It just makes my civil rights blood boil when there's some injustices going on. I just cannot sit still. Gotta speak out. My name is Reverend Donald L. Wilson. I'm 67 years old. I was born in Galveston, Texas. Well, after my mother separated from my father, we migrated to the West Coast for a better life. And my mother being a single parent, raising 3 kids was the best decision that she made. So when I came to Los Angeles, I was about 4 years old. And my mother being a single parent, raising 3 kids was the best decision that she made. My father did remain in Galveston. He did not journey with us. He worked at the plant industry, Union Oil, and he was a shop steward. And so to be a shop steward, you had to be an activist. You contest the actions of management and protect the rights of the workers. So he was a stone activist. When we first came to Los Angeles from Galveston, we lived right in the heart of Watts, right where Locke High School is standing now. Lived first place was Watts, and then we moved to the projects after that. Well, I ended up at LA High School because from time to time my mother moved. And each time we moved, we were moving up the ladder. It got better and better and better until we moved over into the district of LA High School. My mother started off at Children's Hospital when we were living in the projects, and then she worked her way up in education and became an educator. Then later became a principal of LA Unified Child Development Center. So she had a good career in education with children, child development. We were raised quite well, but just an interesting kid, loved to eat. My mother mentioned church. We're going back to church, and she said they're gonna have refreshments. That was the key word, I'm there. I did not exhibit a talent for cooking coming up, but I did exhibit a talent for consuming food. But my grandfather, who was a chef, those memories came back to me because of the fact that he would leave a kitchen and come home in his chef uniform and get in the kitchen and start cooking again for us. That scene had a heavy impression on me. And through high school in 11th grade, that's when it started hitting me. That it seemed like a great career to get into. And that's when my mind started gearing towards being a chef. In this industry, you can start washing dishes and then end up cooking for emperors and presidents. I started off washing dishes at the Holiday Inn at the airport hotel. And that was at the age of 18, 19. And then later, I went on to LA Trade Tech, Culinary Arts, grade school. And before I got out of LA Trade Tech Culinary School, I got my first industry job at the Holiday Inn, cooking. Returned there from a dishwasher and started cooking. In 1978, I was still at the Holiday Inn, and I had an injury from playing football. And when I came back to the Holiday Inn off of that injury, they wanted me to work nights, and I didn't want to do it. And so they actually demoted me. That's when things started getting rough at the Holiday Inn, and they thought I was going to quit because I wanted to work the day shift. I don't care what it was. So I became a receiving clerk after stepping down from cooking to a receiving clerk, and they ended up firing me, and I left. And then met my wife, and I told her I was not taking a greasy spoon job. And so I was looking in the newspaper every day, and there was a little small section in there that Century Plaza needs a night cook. March 31st, 1978, I was hired at the Century Plaza Hotel. One of the proudest days of my life because that's a dream hotel to work for. Now, that was in 78, but I didn't get involved in the union until 1987, working at the Century Plaza Hotel because of the fact that at that time, our union and labor in Los Angeles was very weak. Marilena Durasso, She was a director of staff, and they were looking for leaders in the workforce. My wife is bilingual, being from Panama, and they were looking for bilingual organizers, speak English and Spanish. My wife could not attend the interview, so I said, well, since I'm a member of Local 11, I'll go interview for you, proxy. It was Halloween night, lie not, October the 31st, I went on the interview for my wife, and while she was interviewing me, Marilena Durazo, she saw in me the activism. And long story short, next thing I know, I'm one of the first shop stewards going into training to help turn around this passive union to become a progressive union. It was terrifying because you've always told to obey the boss. As simple. But being in a union house, not knowing what the purpose of a union is for, I realized that I have a voice. And on my first delegation to management with the workers is where I picked up strength and knocked on the door and told the management I would dislike. And so therefore, when I saw the management's eyes, when his eyes blinked, and me speaking to him and the work people or my workers behind me, I knew then that where the leverage lied is workers' rights. Simple. He can't do what we do. He only manages the work that we do. But the work does not get done if it's not done through the hands of the workers in hospitality. Me being a shop steward, I had to represent whoever was around me from A to Z, no matter what color they were, no matter what language they speak. I had to represent them, and I had a joy of representing them, even though some of those same people that you represent would stab you in your back. But if you stop doing your job and contesting the actions of management and protecting the rights of the workers, if they did it to one of us, they'd do it to all. So the good and the bad and the ugly, you got to love it all. So to be a shop steward, you got to have some tough skin. When I left the Century Plaza Hotel to take on the job for the IU, the International Union Unite Here, and the absence of African Americans leaving the industry, some of our eyes, John Wilhelm, our former president of Unite Here, and then Maria Elena Durazo, we came up with language that would invite African Americans back to sign with management and make an earnest effort of reintegrating African Americans back into the hospitality industry because of the fact that we did hospitality for 400 years, free. Okay, now that this industry is paying good money and good benefits, why you don't hire us now? What's the problem? For those who want to work in that industry with dignity. But yes, we acquired that language in 2005, 2006, and signed a contract with management, with our union hotels in that regards, and it has some strong teeth, canine teeth in it. Management, and I'm paraphrasing, should make an earnest effort to make the workforce look like the community. And then it had in there, including an effort to hire African Americans. It's spelled out. The task force, this is in the language, which will consist of hotel operators, management, and the community, along with an ombudsman, would be this committee to be the oversight. And so the first 6 months, these are canine teeth right here, the first 6 months that task force should meet, and then quarterly, they should meet after that. And then we'll check on the hiring practices, who got hired, who did not get hired, and start tracking the numbers of applicants that come into the industry to get hired and those who did not get hired. And so that was basically part of the language, and it was the strongest language, and that language existed in 4 cities: Los Angeles, Boston, San Francisco, and Chicago. We started off with that. Well, what happened when we implemented that language in 2005, 2006, Unite Here with our hospitality industry, John Wilhelm, our international president, carved the position out for me and actually got a promotion. I moved from the kitchen to be an organizing director of our diversity program. And that was to enforce the language, and our ultimate goal was to get a training center with level entry positions for an avenue for African Americans to come into and anybody else. And so that started in 2005, and I did that for 15 years with Unite Here, the international union, along with Local 11. So my job was locally and nationally. Yes, there was some improvement after that contract. I can vouch and say that because we started doing boot camps. And that consisted of a 5-day, 8-hour-a-day boot camp of 40 African Americans that were selected by the task force of the community. And then eventually the boot camp evolved to the Hospitality Training Academy, which is a very excellent machine. And it's modeled after our Las Vegas union there, Local 225 Culinary Union. I'm the first and only African American banquet chef that worked at the Century Plaza Hotel, worked up to that level. And I was told in school at LA Trade Tech, Mr. Beck, German instructor, said you'd have to work years at the Century Plaza to get into that level. And lo and behold, I ended up as the first African American banquet chef that paid good money in 2005 when I left at $40,000 a year, and that does not include benefits or the overtime. And I stayed in the salary, and I negotiated those wages and staying in the union, which was a managerial position, and still the shop steward. Now, who does that? I had a good labor education. And in education, when you know what you know, can nobody take it, you can go for it. And those are the basics in life. I'm coming up on my 40th year. May 20th, 1984, I preached my first sermon. I was a grand rascal back in the days. And it was nobody but God that called me into this. I didn't do this on my own. God called me into this. And I've been preaching the gospel. It would be May 20, 1984, when I preached my first sermon. Out of the 40 years as a preacher, a gospel preacher, 10 of those years I pastored a church. And thank God for that experience from 2005 to 2015. And so the work that I was doing with the union and me being a pastor was interchangeable. They all worked together, community organizer. So it never felt like work to me, but love preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ. The BHW, Black Hospitality Workers, was born July 2020, a month after I retired, and I'm actively now, since January 2021, actively in a meeting every Monday on Zoom with Unite Here Local 23 in the state of Texas, which consists of 7 cities. Unite Here Local 23, Denver, the whole state of Texas, Atlanta, Baltimore, DC, Mississippi down in the south, and those cities that I mentioned are behind the 8 ball. And because of the fact that I have the recipe, yes, the chef has a recipe to improve the working conditions and wages, and we're taking the same recipe that we did here in Los Angeles that used to be terrible to the South, and to change the mentality of the workers, because workers' rights is legal everywhere. I laugh because it's hilarious. Man, my wife, when we first met, Elvia Wilson, she was already a Wilson. Already a Wilson. So we got married, and my wife suffered miscarriages. And the 2 kids that we do have, Donald and Faith. Donald would be 40 years old. And Faith, she's 38. And this activism, or whatever, has filtered into my daughter, Faith. Donald's doing quite well. And out of my son, we got 3 grandkids. They come into play. And people, I don't care who you are, love to eat. So they know Papa's a chef, so I have pictures of my grandkids coming up in chef uniforms and stuff. And so it's filtered down, and it's just a lovely thing. And my wife, she's played a very vital, important part of everything that we do, that I do, and that she has done. In 45 years of marriage, Lord have mercy, it gets better and better. We're still negotiating. It ain't perfect yet. People that have influenced my life tremendously, first of all, let me just say Jesus Christ. My mother, Margaret A. Wilson, heavy influence on me. Single parent, raises Cheryl, my sister, the oldest, Larry, and me. And she was a very eloquent, sophisticated, stern mother that took care of her kids. And no matter where we lived, we never thought we were poor. And she had a strong influence in my life and always wanted me to achieve the highest that I can go. She was constantly pushing me. My advice for the youth coming up, and I want to give back, if you're going to be a pot washer, be the best pot washer you can be. But you don't have to stay as a pot washer, as a tradesman. If you want to go to higher learning, it's there for you. Strive to get it. Strive to get it. And I got to get biblical on you. Whatever you sow, that's what you're going to reap. So if you sow good things, you're going to reap good things. Trouble's going to find your way and know your address, whether you're good or bad. That's part of life. But the song that we sang in the church, I'm glad trouble don't last always. But I found out that my troubles and my struggles helped me be the person that I am today.